All right, it looks like we're going to have some technical issues this morning, which is totally fine. Welcome, everybody, to Sports to Suits Live. I am your host, Amanda Banks. I am so excited about today's conversation. If you are new to the show, thank you for joining. Weekly, I have the opportunity to highlight former athletes that are leveraging their backgrounds in sports to see success in business. And we talk about the lessons that they've learned along their journey, which is today's guest. I'm so super excited about. So today, Kevin Mays the second is joining me. Kevin, thanks for joining in the show today.
No, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it for a few weeks now, so really excited and glad to be here.
Awesome. So if you are tuning in, please drop a comment. Let us know where you're listening from. We have listeners that listen from all over the world. So I'm always very excited to hear where people are tuning in from. Drop us a comment. Definitely drop us a question. We're going to dive into all sorts of fun conversation today, but don't hesitate to drop us a question. If you've got a question for Kevin, then we definitely want to hear it. So, but without further ado, I'm going to check on the technical side because it looks like we're having a little bit of some technical challenges today. So is what it is. But I'm going to have Kevin, do you mind sharing a little bit just about your background and some of the work that you're doing so the audience can get to know you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, again, very nice and grateful to be here. Again, Kevin Mays, originally from Flint, Michigan, about an hour north of Detroit. Born and raised here. Graduated in 2007, where I played football and track and field. Was all state here at my local high school in the state of Michigan. Took that and ran with it and did my undergrad at Central Michigan University, where I also played football and track and field. Won a conference championship in football, won some individual conference championships in track and field, was a two-time All-American. Um, did a little post-collegiate competition. Did some competed in a couple USA indoor national championships. Uh, Went from there and competed as a competitive power lifter. I ranked, I'll say, in the top 10, top five for a few years in my weight class, respectively. And, through that time, started working in sports. Started at the Aspire Group based in Atlanta at their National Sales Center. Went from there, was promoted to KU, the University of Kansas, with the Jayhawks, worked in their athletic department there. Left from there, went back to Central Michigan as athletic director of fundraising and development, and then kind of moved into a consulting space and kind of just calling my own shots a little bit, and which has landed me to where we are today with Flint United.
So I ask most of my guests, where does this come from? So the sports background. So how did you get into sports initially? Like it sounds like you were a multi-sport athlete and that's kind of been like a theme throughout your entire life. But how
Yeah.
did you first get exposed to sports and share a little bit about your journey with actually getting into sport itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had some older cousins, and that's all we did. Play basketball, football, baseball. Just being around them, looking up to them, wanting to be like them. We were still in that age of collecting, sports cards and all of those things. Video games were just getting hot, so everything from Sega to PlayStation One to Dreamcast and all that stuff. I mean, it was just all we knew, being active, being outside and playing. And one of my cousins got really good at football, and he was, kind of like my hero for a little bit. And he was just killing on the gridiron, and I followed in those footsteps. And I'll say that I'm probably the best athlete in the family, after it's all said and done. But that's definitely where the drive and the want and the excitement around sports came from, was just being around my family members and going to all their stuff and then being able to play as well. So started with the family.
So let's talk about mentorship because I think that that is something that's probably very critical for I think for every successful athlete is regardless of how old you are, maybe even tiny kids. having mentorship with other people that you can look up to and other people that, you know, can make an impact not just on the field but off the field, was that like kind of the reason why you like really dug in, was just due to the mentor that you had?
Man, I'll have to say, in high school, I had a track and field coach. He was my throws coach. So I was a thrower. I threw discus and shot put in high school. And his name was Mike Stewart. We called him Big Mike. He was kind of like an urban legend type guy. He was like the male version of Trunchbull from Matilda. He was intense, the most intense person that I know around a sport. So he would, have us do some of the most, at the time, ridiculous, mundane things. And we would, kind of be like, man, why are we doing this? We would go to competitions and go to track meets, and um, he would like, hey, bring 6 towels, 3 pairs of shoes, bring a pair of gloves, and a garbage bag. Like, man, why are you making us do all this stuff? And we're kind of young, not paying attention, and we would get out there and it would be a torrential downpour. So your whole bag is wet, but all your stuff is inside a garbage bag. So while everyone else is kind of struggling with the elements, I've got another pair of shoes. I've got, towels to dry all my stuff, all my implements. Um, he would not make us, but he would ask us to cut the grass in our throwing areas. He was the first person that taught myself and my teammates how to operate, a sporting event, operationally, setting up bleachers, cutting the grass, painting our own lines, putting up flags so people didn't walk in certain areas to, keep them safe. Um, we would travel across the state and sometimes across state lines, going to, other schools that had, good throwers and good athletes. And it might just be us there hosting our own competitions. And I mean, learning, the ins and outs, learning it from the top down and the bottom up was something I still carry with me till this day. It taught me how to be accountable. It taught me how to be on time. It taught me how to think, you know, 2 or 3 steps ahead of the next person, to be prepared. And I think that's really what allowed me to be successful in a lot of senses, because um, I'm not the biggest, fastest, strongest. Well, I did become the strongest, but maybe not the biggest. But all those little things, that we learned at a young age, and all the extra reps and things that we put in, it translated immediately for me. I mean, it translated immediately, and that's where I first really got my first true taste of mentorship, and how that it can be beneficial to the future.
How impactful was that coach on your life?
The most the most impactful. I mean, I actually quit track and field my freshman year, um came back my sophomore year, and we have to fast forward to my senior year, and then to my freshman year of college, sophomore year, junior year, and then even past that into my adult life, getting into powerlifting. And he was just like, hey, you remember when you quit? And we're going back 10 years at this point. And that's what, he always reminded me of, is like, remember when you quit, remember when you gave up. Um, and, that's something that reigns true. But I mean, this guy he was a, he is probably the most successful throws coach in the state of Michigan history. Um, any throws athlete that had been successful before he passed a few years ago absolutely knew who he was. You could call him at any time of day, and he would be able to spew the most random track and field throwing fact in the world. It was nuts. Another one more fun fact: we would go to, and it was kind of cool and kind of boring at the same time, but we would go to the National Throws Coaches association meetings. It's like, why do we have to go to this? We're not coaches. But I mean, all, Olympian athletes would, just be there hanging out. So you would meet these guys, and then you would go kind of go watch, them compete and some of the things that they would do. And as we got older and as I got into college and these guys were still around, and at this point, it's a big deal because I'm in this sport and have a better respect for them. But we went to one of those clinics one year, and there was a thrower. His name was Al Order. He was like the goat of throwing, or one of the forefathers of throwing. And after he was done, he started to paint. He was a painter, but he would take a discus and use the discus basically at his paintbrush and just throw it at canvases. And it was the most
I bet it was
ridiculous thing.
beautiful.
It was. It really was. But those paintings end up being worth, quite a bit of money. I'm like, I would have never imagined. So, um, just the overall impact, and seeing the purpose behind the smallest things and how they translate. Um, I mean, it's still most important today. I can still do, the workouts that he taught us. Some of the ideas and concepts that he gave us, and they'll be just as beneficial today as they were, back then.
So I want to get into this topic pretty deeply with you because it's something that you and I are both very passionate and fortunate of. I had some amazing coaches throughout my gymnastics journey, and even some business coaches in my professional career to date. So I think that coaching is one of those things that's absolutely critical to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're on the field or off the field. But I also think it's almost a thankless job sometimes. Like, I don't think that people realize how impactful being a coach can be to kids
Mhm.
and adults. I
Yeah.
think it's something that is very much overlooked. And sometimes as parents, we can get very intense and we can, be very passionate about our kiddos. But I don't think that people realize how impactful coaches can be on the life of other people.
No, absolutely. You know, again, going from high school to college, the next coach that I had actually formed a great relationship with my high school coach. We weren't too far away. I was an hour and a half from home. Um, and my college coach really carried some of those same concepts and principles. And, I was successful in my sport, but you say I wasn't the most technical. I wasn't the most technically sound. Again, I didn't have all the tools that some other athletes may have had, but the things that I did have, my coach was able to recognize those things and allowed me to be an individual athlete, but also knew how to fix the things that they knew weren't going to work. So, being able to being able to being able to build a relationship with someone that is going to push you, change you, tweak you in certain ways and not others, is very important. So, sometimes you look at coaching and you think it's kind of a one-way street and it's just someone imposing down on you. But they also have to be willing to take that same, communication uh, in the reverse way so that you can understand, one another. So, you know, I mean, I've been having conversations the past few weeks with people outside of the sports world that work in industries in areas where I think that they can have an impact, and have to do those same things. So talking to, people in academia that aren't working directly with athletes or in sports and sports business, and saying, you know, we can apply physics to sport. We can apply engineering to sport. We can apply all these things, just because you're working in where, our demographic in my area where I live is heavily influenced by, industrial work, in the automotive industry and all those things. So people tend to get hyper focused on, their area of expertise, which is understandable. Um, but for me, as I try to evolve our our foundation, it's been very important for me to be a voice in saying, hey, there's more here than what you're used to, and let's explore that.
So sport to me, like I've had several people that have, mentioned this that are in the sport. Like sports just a platform. Like it's a way for people to come together with a mutual love of the games,
Mhm.
right? But it's an incredible platform to leverage and to use to impact the lives of other people. And so I want to dive into your transition out of college sports into your professional career, because we have a ton of student athletes that tune into this show. And I know a lot of student athletes look at careers like sales and marketing and communication and branding because it's a great opportunity to leverage some of the skills that you had, on the field or on the court into your professional life. So you kind of took that turn, as did I, as far as going into kind of that sales, marketing, branding kind of component. So what were some of the lessons that you learned doing your sports that you carried into your early days as a professional?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think there are, especially as, college athletes, and even more so now than then, um, you're always selling or marketing or positioning or branding, whether you realize it or not. Um, Before now, a lot of times, that was forced. And it was like, hey, we need you to show up at this, autograph signing. We need you to show up at this donor event. We need you to show up here and there. Whereas, as an individual and your individuality wasn't really put on the forefront. Um, Whereas now, you know, that's that's all you have. I mean, I've been watching ESPN all day, and you can't even post something without people saying you are directly endorsing what you're posting. And that's not always
Yep.
what that means. Um, so I think, student athletes have a much greater opportunity to transition, out of sport into the real world, because 9 times out of 10, you can take your 1.5 million followers and continue to leverage, that into what you may want it to be. Um, but even on the, for those like for me, I wasn't a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. But I knew that I love sports. I wanted to stay around sports. I wanted to be as closely connected as I could. And, having to think about the adult side of it, the thing that I learned is, hey, if you can control the bottom line of any company, any organization, a lot of times you can guarantee that you'll have a job. Um, and how it really happened, when I started working with the Aspire Group, I was working in a remote location, and we were selling tickets for NCAA championship events all over the country: women's volleyball, men's lacrosse, hockey, um, anything you can think
You
of.
were having a blast, I'm sure. I mean, this sounds like such a fun time.
It was fun, but we weren't going to these
I
these
mean, I would
places.
imagine that that's like a blast.
We were sitting remote. So what I learned in sales, like, maybe this isn't what I love the most, but I could, or what I learned is how to illustrate, how to tell a story. you know the women's volleyball national championships is in Seattle or Spokane, Washington. I don't remember which city it was. Like, I'm not physically going to that location. But I have to Google, and I have to research, and I have to be able to tell this family from Gainesville, Florida, what they're going to be experiencing while they're there. And I've never been, in that role. I wasn't trying to sell one or two tickets or six tickets. I was trying to sell 1,600 tickets. And, they provided us with a foundation to do those things. Um, but I kind of struck gold on one of the groups, and I'll consider that my first, corporate sponsor sale. And I just was like, hey, I'm never trying to sell 2 tickets at a time again. And I use that to leverage, throughout the rest of my career. And I think it fast tracked me pretty well.
So you don't come across to me, and so I want to talk a little bit about the sales side because naturally I'm pretty introverted, and from a sales perspective, I've sold a lot of tech, but my approach has always been very, very different because I'm not that, I don't know, that in your face, like used car sales kind of approach. And so I think that there's such a unique opportunity for athletes to get into sales, but they need to understand it's not, sales is not what you think it is. I mean, did you
Right.
kind of experience that as well? Like, I thought that if I'm going to get into sales, it's going to be this hardcore, and some things were, right? But like, it was very much like I thrive being an introvert, being, relationship based and
Yeah.
developing relationships with people. Did you kind of experience the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you learn and really take ownership of a sales process,
Yep.
once you, well, this is something I still use to this day. I had a huge win in for Flint United last year. And I was like, man, how did that happen? But I realized it was the relationship that I had built with the person, prior to that. Or, I mean, a lot of the, capital that we've raised is due to my reputation, due to the relationship that I've built in the perception of me and my community. I'm not running in anybody's door and saying, "Hey, give, 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 give." They're like, "What am I giving to? Who are you?" They're this all about relationship building, and sometimes that can happen fast. Sometimes it takes time. Um, so definitely not, busting down anybody's door, but I have learned to be persistent, consistent,
Yep.
and just ensuring that if someone isn't following up with me, it may not be because it's a no, but I'm asking for something. If I want something from you, I need to make sure that I'm there to ask for it. I can't expect anybody to give me something I don't ask for. And so until I hear a no or not right now, then I'm gonna be there, and it works for me every day. I'm
So
so
give me like a little bit of a tip or trick. So if anybody's in sales right now that's
Mhm.
tuning in, or an entrepreneur or somebody trying to grow their business and they're responsible for the actual growth or the revenue side of the business. So give like maybe one or two of your best tips or tricks that they can incorporate into their own process.
So one of the first things that I learned was the 24/48/48 rule.
Okay.
So follow up at least within 24 hours of your first touch point. Especially if you don't get a response, follow up again in 48 hours and then again in 48 hours. That's something that's, been true for me for a long time. And something else that I've kind of taught myself, I'm always responding in the same email thread. So even after we close one transaction from last year, I'm going to respond to you in the same exact thread. So we keep a track record of all we're doing. And something that I've picked up, and this is just time management in the past 8 months, I schedule probably 15 emails per night to go out for between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. every morning.
Why that time?
Because people are usually not gonna have too much more coming in. So I'm at the top. Yep, I'm at the top.
Here's something that I've learned that has really made an impact that I didn't think it would is if you have a consistent last sentence before you actually say sincerely in your name. I have
Yeah,
literally had people reach out to me and be like, "Thank you so much. I know that it's you."
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
always know that it's you because you have a consistent like last sentence. It could be something super simple. It's almost like
yep,
a tagline, right? Like it's
yeah,
almost like a, but it basically, I guess it's the seal of approval. I don't know what
right,
else, but that's
right.
like a tip that like somebody said to me, and I just realized it not long ago. So
Yeah.
we've got some people popping in here. I want to give a couple of shout outs. So we've got Patrick Johnson tuning in. Good to see you. So I need to get you two connected if I have not already done that.
Yeah,
Um, Patrick's the former guest on the show, and he has launched Rimpage, which is also a basketball club. And then we've got James from Philly tuning in, so that's exciting. Good to see you, James. And then we've got Joshua tuning in, and Courtney. And then we've got Dr. Sarah Leap on here. She says relationships are key to everything. They were when we were on a team, and the same applies to life beyond the game. So I love that. So let's talk a little bit more about relationships, because I think that that's a critical component and it's something that everybody can take away. And I think athletes specifically have a really unique advantage because there are people that are actually interested in getting to know them, right?
yeah,
Especially when they have that platform. So with NIL, so anybody that's tuning in that doesn't understand NIL, which is name, image, and likeness, college athletes, high school athletes can monetize on their brands. So this is something that I think is really, really critical. So if there are student athletes or professional athletes tuning in, what are some ways that you would recommend that they leverage their brand to date to start building their community for when they transition out of the sport at a later time?
for sure. So I've helped a few of my friends' kids and just people that are close by actually have a logo that I'm going to design here a little bit later today. Um, but as you transition and you get ready to move around and all those things, you have to realize where your communities are.
Yep.
So you've got your home base, now you've got a college base, and then you find your subcultures within that and build out from there. I've got a kid, he's probably got 4,500 followers. Like, okay, we're not going to Coca-Cola and McDonald's and Beats by Dre and all these different things, but there's a car dealership in your hometown.
Yep.
There's a small McDonald's network in your hometown. There's a doctor's office. There are 6 or 7 national restaurant chains that you can go to that have, $1,000, $1,500, $2,500, and all you gotta do is make a couple posts, show up at the restaurant. Um, this is for me personally. I know in most communities, say if your town has anywhere from 75,000 to 100,000 people, there's at least $150,000 in sponsorship dollars that you can go get right now if you maintain the relationships or know how to build them properly, know how to present yourself properly, or can navigate your reach as an individual. Um, so I mean, it's imperative that you think about your network, and you have to go out and be intentional sometimes in growing that network. And it's tough when you're young, but I think in today's day and age that people are understanding the landscape of what's going on, and you'll get some opportunities presented to you. But you know, regardless of how many followers you have and all those things, you know, you have more people in real life that know you than opposed to, on social media sometimes. So learn how to leverage, your real life relationships. And
Get off the phone, get off the
yeah,
iPad. Like, your teammates have parents, their coaches are willing to open doors. Like,
yeah,
you really kind of have to just talk to people, like,
real
just
people.
get to know, build
Yeah,
relationships. You may get a job from one of these people once you're
absolutely.
no longer in the sport. Like, so for anybody that doesn't understand affiliate marketing or influencer marketing, can you share a little bit from like a company perspective on what those things are and how they could potentially even go about incorporating that into their business models?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just yesterday I found a company. Um, it's called Millions, or no, I won't even use them. I'll use a personal connection that I know. So I have a one of my mentors. He owns a company called Revel Moments, Revel Moments, and essentially what it is, it's a platform just like this, where it'd be yourself and say LeBron James. We open up this room. We can have up to 350 other people that are also in the room. Somebody's moderating. You're going to ask me some questions. We're going to have a conversation, but then they're going to put your best friend up to have a conversation with me. And now me and that person can have a conversation back and forth. And, now it's a personal connection. We may never see each other in real life, but there was one episode they had It was an athlete, a former athlete from UNLV, and he got in a group chat with some guys. And what came from the conversation, they organized the whole golf outing with this athlete that they just have loved their entire life, and
Yep.
all those things. Um, but the partnership that they have now is with University of Michigan. So they're going through all of these different series of conversations with all the position groups. So the offensive lineman, you might know one of them, maybe two of them, but you don't know the whole group. But through these series of conversations, now they're building their brand, they're building content, they're building relationships that can be carried out and translated. So when you talk about affiliate marketing and being in a space to where you can use your direct network to grow a brand is very impactful. But
Yep.
sometimes that's even more difficult, 'cause now I have to send you a discount code and you have to subscribe and all those things. And
Yeah.
that in the beginning, it's a lot easier to promote those things through your most closest and personal network.
Yep.
When I first started powerlifting, there was a supplement brand called BPI, and they had a crazy affiliate marketing program. Like, I can go through some of my social media. I was posting like 8 times per week. I would go into vitamin shops and GNCs, and they were paying you like $75 per store appearance. I was like, man, this is great. It was one of the best
Because it was
programs.
something that you loved anyways.
Yeah, it was like one of the best programs I'd ever been a part of. They would send me huge boxes of supplements, like full size stuff, and then like little samples. Um, I kind of You could get around the system, but
Yeah.
you could set up pop-ups like at your gym.
Yeah.
So I would just walk in my gym, throw a bunch of samples on the counter, go work out. People like, hey man, thanks for the stuff. I'm like, no problem. Next year I'll be at the store on Saturday. Stop by, buy the full thing. So,
Yeah.
you just have to be creative. I mean, it should be fun. It can be, exhausting and taxing at times, but I mean, if you want to make it out what it can be, you gotta put in some time, but have fun with it.
So these affiliate programs, like I've become kind of obsessed is a really bad word, but I've become fascinated with companies and how they're actually like releasing affiliate programs. And I'm kind of watching it in the athletic community specifically. But with my background in tech, it's really interesting because a lot of technology providers have really, really, really good affiliate programs.
Mm.
And so there's all sorts of companies that are offering kind of this different or unique model, but ways for people to actually monetize. So it doesn't matter if you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're passionate about an industry or passionate about a product, there are so many really cool ways to monetize on that. And I'm a fan of them.
Yeah.
I'll give a total shout out, and I don't know her personally, but Sean Johnson and her husband, Andrew East, do a really cool job of affiliate marketing. So if you're not familiar with these types of programs, like definitely check out what they do because they're crushing it on Instagram. So like total shout out to them because they've done a really interesting job of like picking a lane, becoming these affiliate marketers, and they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing at what they do. So let's get back into the work that you're doing now. And we've not really had a whole lot of opportunity to talk about Flint United, but I definitely want to get into, what is it like to launch a team completely from scratch,
Yeah.
first and foremost, and then share like a little bit about what you guys have going on and the opportunity that you guys are providing to athletes because it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, starting from scratch, I don't even remember how it all happened. Um, but the league that we're a part of, the TBL for short, or the basketball league. Um, before I decided to do this, I did all of my research. I was actually consulting for a firm, and they were one of our clients. So, you know, at face value, you're looking at, the types of teams, you're looking at the logos, you're looking at the uniforms, you're looking at social media and like how do they present. And like, man, it looks solid. It looks real good. Um I really like what they, were doing in that sense. And then I just shared this with someone also in a presentation, but we have a smart sheet This smart sheet is
Smart sheets are cool, by the way. So
man,
shout out to smart sheets.
smart sheet. They have. Let me see. I might be able to pull it up real quick and count. Well, not count by hand, but we've got 218 different lines of information. So within those 218 lines, obviously I don't read them all, but everything is consistent with the different department area um, of need for you to run a successful, operation. It was really a plug and play. I had to do, this, complete this list of tasks, and everything else was, pretty much in order. But again, the TBL, we've got 45 leagues across the, 45 teams across the country. I'm sorry. Those go from Tampa, Florida, all the way to LA, from Flint, Michigan to Houston, Texas. Um, we also have a partnership with the NBL Canada, and they've got, I want to say, 9 or 10 teams that compete with our Midwest and Northeast region. Um, and that's, one of the first levels of trajectory for our athletes. This is our third season, but you say in our first 2 seasons, I've transitioned one athlete to the NBA G League, one coach to the NBA G League, and then also have about 5 or 6 guys that have gone to higher level overseas organizations. The league as a whole, I'll say you've got, and this again is just in the 3 years that I've been here, we've had, I want to say, 6 guys transition to the G League. 2 of them are currently on NBA rosters. Um, the number of overseas guys is just crazy. Then you've got guys that are playing in the TBT and all those other things also. So it's uh it's growing, it's growing. The foundation is getting greater, and it's a great thing.
Is that really like the vision for the league, is like to transition people to the next level? Is that really kind of like what you guys are offering? And can you share like a little bit about what your overall vision is for the athletes?
Yeah, for sure. So we're, our athletes, they only sign 1 year contracts. So the hope and plan is for them to develop and, go on to that next level. Now you do have guys that, are local, that are just here in your community, that come and try out and usually make the team every year. And that helps for, fan continuity and engagement and all those things. Um, but you also have guys that, like, I've got a guy right now, he just left to go play in Chile, like September 20th. So say their season ends in December, he's not going to go back to play anywhere else for, however long. He's going to come back and play for us again, then he'll go back. So I mean, let's, until you get to, that NBA G League level, the overseas, and they're kind of just back and forth, kind of jockeying for playing time. Um, and then there is a league minimum of how much we have to pay guys, but we do have to pay the athletes. And if they live outside of a certain area, we have to provide housing. Um, and every organization is different, but for me, being a former athlete, I know what an elite level athlete wants. I know how I want to be treated. I know how I want to kind of live and eat and operate. So, you know, the stronger our foundation and the more we grow, the more opportunity and care and things that we can do for the athletes. So, just building and growing, and hopefully one day I can pay a guy $1 million and you know really make some change. But we're definitely doing some great things for the athletes and business professionals. Transitioning coaches and salespeople and operations staff to those next levels also.
So, what are some areas of opportunity or gaps? So I'm asking this question from a standpoint of the athletic community as a whole. I think is transitioning a little bit. The mentality or mindset, focus around mental health and well-being, and some of these other things is like a huge emphasis. Um, and quite frankly, I think that should be for every industry, not necessarily just sports. But what are some areas of opportunity or some gaps that you see right now that you feel like the athletic community as a whole needs to continue to dive a little bit deeper into?
That's something that we see on, I think, a very high level. because we're dealing with athletes that may have been to 3 or 4 different schools, during their college career. Or we even had a guy who only played a year of college basketball, dropped out, and hadn't played for another couple years before he came to our league and ended up being an amazing athlete. Like, what happens in between there?
Yep.
You got guys that are, injured, dealing with, family issues and all these different things. So, from and even if you look at, like Deion Sanders at Jackson State and all these things, you have so many more athletes at the bottom as compared to the top
Yep.
aren't receiving, some of these resources. So being able to take a guy who's coming from a lower level school who may not have even had some of the things that I'm able to provide
Yep.
is like, man, how can we, continue to fill that pipeline from the bottom up? So it for us, when we start, our training camp season, all those things, it's really trying to mimic at least collegiate sports at the highest level as possible. So, we're, provide well through training camp, at least providing meals. We've got a very scheduled and detailed itinerary. You're in a safe space. It feels good. It feels like home. You've got, a gym facility to work out in. You've got a weight room. You've got pools. You got saunas. You got physical therapists. You've got athletic trainers. You got chiropractors, massage therapists. Um, all of those things. So, every team across our league, I know, is striving to provide the best experience possible for these athletes because, we want to be a hub. We want to be the the Lakers or the Golden State Warriors, the Detroit Pistons, of our communities, and to be able to build that pipeline. So, the Pistons coaches are calling and saying, "Hey, we notice you guys, we see what you're doing, and we like to, build some relationship. Not to say we're taking the place of the G League, but to at least have a pipeline of in a relationship with those guys."
So what does leadership mean to you? So you've seen it at a lot of different, a lot of different angles, right? You're a high level competitive athlete. You went into a sales role. Now you're leading, a large organization. Like, what does leadership mean to you? And what do you, when you look for leaders, what are you seeking from those individuals?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, looking at every stop along the way, I just want to, as we all say, leave it better than I found it.
Yep.
And that may not be the exact place, and they're putting up a statue of me and, all those things. But the people that are there when I'm there, they know if they call me, hey, I'm here for you. In the same, if I call them, they'll be there for me as well. Again, going back to relationships, if you can't, pick up the phone and call someone that you worked with, you know 10 years ago, you may not have done, what was expected of you. um but if you're able to, you know go into a place, and you don't always go in as a leader, you don't always go in as the front person, but through the relationships that you're building, through the work that you're doing, I think we're all leaders in that sense, because if you're truly doing what it is that you're there to do or called to do, no one can expect anything less than your best. So, I don't think there's many people who I can't call on and ask for something. And I think that's what makes us, rich in life, whether, in life or financially. But all of my peers are doing very well. All the people I've worked with are doing very well. And if I fall on hard times and I need a job, I'm pretty sure I could find one somewhere.
So I have a question for you that so I should have asked this I should have asked this earlier on the conversation, but it's just dawning on me. I'm like, you are the perfect person to ask this question. So there's a lot of parents that have young kids that are high performing athletes.
Mhm.
So what I go with this is like the club sports, the travel sports, the high commitment sports, right? Basketball, football, soccer, gymnastics, whatever sport it may be. So with club sports, you're seeing incredible talent sooner on in life, meaning you're seeing these kids that are crushing crushing sports at 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
I was an athlete that burned out. So my longevity of my gymnastics career did not last because I burned out. And so I'm super passionate about this topic around longevity of sport to create opportunity for
With club sports, you're seeing incredible talent.
Oh wow. We're getting a lot of like
Yeah, that was. I think I had it open on my browser.
hey, it's live. This is part of it. So the question is as parents, how do we provide an ecosystem for our young athletes to provide longevity in their athletic career versus having them peak super, super, super young? What are some tips or tricks that you would give to parents or coaches to help lengthen their athletic career?
I think a lot of kids and parents think they have to be so specialized now. I think that's the first thing. Do more than one thing.
Yep.
Play all the sports, have fun. But also we understand the pressures of social media and, high school students being able to receive NIL deals also.
It's a
Um,
lot. Like it is a lot on our young kids. And that's something that like as parents you want to provide them resources so that they can thrive and do their best, but at what point are you causing burnout or what
right
point are you causing, challenges around that so they lose passion or love for their
yeah.
sport?
There I think there are some very intentional things that you can do. So I had a situation where I was at, the top of my competitive career in college. I was like top three in the nation, going into, some, big time meets and competitions. And one day I thought I was going to have a heart attack, um, like shortness of breath, you know, increased heart rate. I ended up getting pulled from all competition. I had to do all these crazy stress tests and all this stuff. And nothing ended up coming from it. But what I then learned how to do, what was called it's called breath work and meditating and things like that. And I didn't have to get too intense with it. But I have a friend of mine who now years later, he just finished up the season with the San Francisco Giants. He has a company called the Mind Strong Project. They're based in like Minneapolis, and so it was some of the most intense training that I've ever done. That's like not actual training, but you go in, they take you through all these breathing cadences, and they teach you how to control your breath when you're hyperventilating. So we started out in like just their living room. They had these little memory foam mats, and we just go through, close your eyes, and you just like all this crazy breathing stuff.
Yeah.
After that, this was in the middle of the winter in Minneapolis, so it was like 30 feet of snow. Um, so in their backyard, they also have a man-made wood-burning sauna. So you do all your breath work, and you're down to like socks and compression. Um, and then they have you lay in the snow. So obviously, your body's first reaction is to seize up and draw up,
Yeah.
and it's trying to create energy, to create warmth and heat. But the tagline and the phrase that they use is "the cold is my blanket," and they train this, several times a week. So when they lay in the snow or get in the cold tub, they go very controlled breathing, and then you get out of the cold temperature and you go into the sauna, and then you come back into the cold and back and forth and back and forth.
That sounds miserable. I'm
Pretty
sorry.
bad. But for them, they specialize in training Major League Baseball players. So it's that high pitch count focus, but all athletes. But it's that type of work. So I mean, we really have to, I think, pay attention and focus on the anxiety levels of people, across the board. And I think it's like when you get anxious, it's like, hey, just breathe,
Yeah.
and you have to kind of expand on that. But that's one thing that I always share, like, hey, just breathe, and yeah, just breathe.
So I had the pleasure of sitting in on a presentation from Lou Holtz the other day. So it was amazing, and he was like, "We just overcomplicate everything. It's very simple." It's love, it's communication. Like,
That's
it's
it.
very, very simple. And so, like, sometimes I think we try to overcomplicate things, right? Let kids be kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let
Gotta let
kids be
kids be
kids. And,
kids. Yep.
uh,
It's tough.
it's really tough. So back to the league, because I want to point people in your direction as far as definitely go on Instagram and follow. I'm going to drop a banner here so that you guys can see. Go to Flint United, give them a little bit of like and subscribe. I guess how that works with Instagram. What are some other resources that they can go check out? I know that you guys are always seeking like opportunities for sponsors and things to that nature. So share a little bit with the audience, like how they can engage and connect with you, as well as maybe some resources that you guys are looking for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always available: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those spaces. We're actually uh, renovating, remodeling, upgrading our website. Um, but trying to expand our reach. Um, we're talking to a new tennis shoe company, um, hopefully to get just team shoes. There's an insole company we're going after. There's another organization that's very similar to Sports to Suits in name, but they provide sales training for athletes that are transitioning out. um, I mean, if you feel you have a connectivity to sports and you want to have a connectivity to professional athletes, that are excited and willing to go into these types of partnerships with an organization that's excited to have these types of relationships, definitely reach out to us. I mean, shoot, we have a shoestring or a shoelace partner for custom shoelaces. We have a CBD roll-on partner, um, all types of stuff.
I mean,
So
you've got to get creative. Like,
yeah,
and that's the thing, is if it's in alignment, right? It's such a unique opportunity. I think that
yep,
these affiliate and brand marketing programs are so cool. There's an organization I'll share with you, is Critique. So
mhm,
Critique is a really cool organization. I've had Robert Esme on as a guest. He's a former Olympic track and field athlete. I'm pretty sure him and his team won the gold medal in,
oh, nice.
think they were in Atlanta. But he has a really cool tech company. So if you guys are listening in and you're part of an organization, like Kevin said, that has affiliate programs and are looking to add really cool athletes to your programs, like, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely.
What's the best way to reach out, Kevin? Is it through LinkedIn? Do you have an email that you want to provide to people? Like, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is perfect, and my email is pretty simple. It's kevin@flintunited.net. But yeah, I mean, if you find me on anything else, just shoot me a message. I'm usually up pretty late, so just I'll get to it. No, I try to be very punctual and responsive. So yeah, either way is fine.
So we're getting ready to wrap up, but I want to leave it with you. Like, what are you excited about? So what are some things that the team has going on that you are super excited about that we want to wrap the conversation up around?
No, just going into year 3. Um,
That's a milestone.
it is going into the 3rd season, and having to forecast and think about things we did bad, think about things we did good, creating new relationships, and really bringing in an amazing team, trying to get some, high level talent. Um, the idea that we even had last year, when the college basketball season ends in March, if a team isn't going to, the NCAA tournament or the NIT, like, man, how cool would it be to, take a guy from a college roster who's, on the verge of, taking that next step in his career and coming to play for us for, a couple more months and, being a part of that process. I kind of think of it like, an NIL type opportunity. So if you have any coaching relationships, and their athletes are going to be looking for some of those opportunities, please let us know. But just going into year 3, creating going to continuing to add to the foundation of professional sports in our country, in the world, and being a part of the landscape that we're all building.
Well, Kevin, I can't thank you enough for joining in on the conversation today. This has been awesome. I've had a lot of fun. I mean, this has
Yeah,
been
for
a fun
sure.
conversation. conversation. And
Yes, I really
I am
appreciate it.
cheering you guys on. I am so excited to hear of your continued success and to watch kind of your evolution and journey as you continue to grow. And to anybody that's tuning in, thanks for being a listener of the show. It's my honor every week to highlight amazing people doing some really cool things in sports. So if I can be a resource anyway, please don't hesitate in reaching out and letting me know how I could potentially help you guys. And this is fun.
It is. It
It's
is.
been
I
a
really, really
fun
appreciate it.
conversation.
It has been. I feel like we need like 30 more minutes, another hour maybe.
I know we could probably talk for days if
Yeah.
I had to guess. But maybe we need to have another one next year.
Yeah, we definitely have to. Maybe a follow-up at the end of the season.
Let's go. All righty. All right. To everybody tuning in, thanks again. I will see you again next Tuesday. Kevin, thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much.